All right, here we go. Episode number 14, Chris Opdyke Show. Today, having a special guest, Ashley Devine. Ashley's cancer survivor, currently still living with cancer, cancer fighter. Ashley, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to get you in. We've been talking for a while.
Yeah.
It's just hard getting everybody's schedules to sync up. You became sick in 2011
Yes.
at 21 years old.
Yes.
So, were you feeling ill? Did you have pain? Did you go to the doctor for a normal checkup?
Pretty much. I thought I was always tired, and I thought it was just from, working constantly. I did have some pain in my back, and every time I would sneeze or cough, I would get like a pain in like my upper abdomen area. Like I would hunch over. So I kind of chalked it up to the shoulder pain, the back pain as from working out because I was going to the gym then. And then the sneezing and the coughing, I'm like, I don't know what that could be. But then also too over time, my face was getting very swollen. Like I almost looked like somebody with like Cushing's disease.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I were to show you pictures, it doesn't even look like me. So I went to my general physician, and she ran blood work on me. My liver functions and my sediment rate, they were through the roof. Long story short, she did an ultrasound. They saw a tumor, and then they did an MRI, and that tumor was about the size of a volleyball
Right.
in my stomach.
That's
In my
extreme.
liver,
That's like really big volleyball.
It's ginormous, and I'm a small person, and I didn't look like I was pregnant. I didn't have like this giant stomach. It was pushing more into my back area, so that was the back pain, and all the nerve endings were like connected to my shoulder, so that was causing shoulder pain. So it was kind of like taking up like the whole
half of your
inside
abdomen,
of
your abdomen, right? What was that thought process like? Was it the GP that told you like you
The
had the
GP
tumor?
told me that I had a tumor and that she chalked it up to, okay, you don't have cirrhosis, you don't have any hepatitis, you're overall healthy besides your liver functions are through the roof and this tumor that we see. So it's probably something called like a hemangioma where it's just basically a tumor that is non-cancerous. So they could remove it. Okay, cool. So when I went for the MRI, I remember being at the hospital. I was at Moffitt Cancer Center in Tampa at the time.
Because you were living in Florida.
I was
you weren't
living in
Jersey at the
Florida,
time.
yeah. After my parents got divorced in high school, I moved down to Florida with my mom. So I was down there for like 8 years. So I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, I have cancer. Like I knew. It was
21.
weird. Yeah. I'm like, I know this is cancer. They didn't even biopsy it. And I just had a feeling. And it was weird because also, too, I know like we didn't get to talk about this actually, but I was around cancer a lot of my life. One of my best friends growing up, she had cancer. She'd beat it. My mom had cancer twice. My best friend's mom had cancer. Like I've just been around it, and I'm like, I know what it's. That feeling.
You
It
kinda
was
feel
so
it, you
weird. I
know,
just
yeah.
knew I had cancer. So when they biopsied it, and they're like, oh yeah, you have something called. It was fibrolamellar hepatocellular variant cancer, and I know we were just talking about the big words, but
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, I know. My parents were shocked, and I'm like, I know.
So after that happens, then how's the process start? Because you were in Florida, Dad's up here in Brooklyn,
Yes.
and nobody wanted to do the operation. Nobody wanted
Nobody.
to remove tumor in Florida.
I went and saw 5 surgeons, and I sent my scans to the best of the best hospitals, Mayo Clinic, MD Anderson. Nobody would touch me. I went to the transplant center in Tampa. I didn't even qualify for a liver transplant at the time because the tumor was so big.
Big.
So my typical Brooklyn father, get your ass up to Sloan Kettering, and
Come back to New York, right?
get to New York, and that's what I did. And my surgeon said, I said, listen, don't beat around the bush. Either you can operate on me or you can't. Like, I got to figure this out. He's like, be here in 2 weeks. He was very straightforward and blunt, and he saved my life. And I was in remission for 2.5 years.
What was the recovery process? Because just from talking to you, the little bit of conversation that we had, and watching you on your Insta and stuff, like you're pretty tough. Like you're a pretty tough chick, I think.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that recovery process, because I feel like you're like, yeah, I had a volleyball removed from my abdomen and then I was okay the next day. So it's a little bit more
Kind
than
of no.
it's a little bit more than that,
Yeah, it
right?
was a little bit more deeper than
So
that.
talk a little bit about the process
So
after
the
the surgery.
Yeah, the recovery process, it was rough, but I feel like it wasn't as rough as many people would think that it would be for me. Growing up, I was kind of like a hard ass, tough.
Mhm.
And going through this, like I said, I was around people that had cancer, and I knew, I'm like, they survived it. I knew I could survive it. So I feel like that strong mindset
Mhm.
was what really got me through it. Physically, it was extremely hard. I'm sure you saw pictures on my Instagram. My scar looks like a Mercedes sign. I had 68 staples in my stomach. It was a long, tough recovery. I remember I couldn't even sleep in my bed. I had to sleep in a recliner. I couldn't lay back. I couldn't sit up certain ways. It was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard, but
What about like how long was it? Like months?
it was about 4 weeks.
Really, 4 weeks?
4 weeks, and then I went right back to work.
No, was it PT involved? Anything
No,
like that?
no PT, nothing.
So you had the volleyball.
4 weeks, no
4 weeks.
chemo after. Told him I didn't want to do chemo. He said, okay, fine. So when he removed that, he removed like some of my lymph nodes and my gallbladder at the same time. Yep, no PT, nothing, and no chemo, and I was in remission for 2.5 years. Just did the every 3-month checkups to see, make sure everything was going good, and then unfortunately in 2014 it came back as inoperable.
And it was inoperable because of the location?
The location, yeah. So it's laying, because I still have it. So the tumor now, it's pretty small. It's laying right on my hepatic vein. So let's say this is a tumor, this is a vein. And your hepatic vein is your main outflow of blood from your heart to your liver. So that vein cannot be touched.
Right.
So every day I'm just kind of knocking on wood and praying that that tumor doesn't affect that vein.
And once it came back, they wanted to do chemo? And you refused?
They wanted to do something called chemoembolization, where it just goes right to the source.
Yeah.
And I'm like, not sitting right with me, not doing it. I did a few, they're called like bland embolizations, where it's just like heat could kind of almost, these little glass beads that they put into the tumor and the blood vessels, so it will keep the tumor from getting its blood supply, which lets the tumor grow. I did a few of those, and I will say that every time I did one of those, I had a backslide in my health.
Yeah.
And then I also did, we were talking about, did the radiation, really strong dose of radiation.
And the radiation didn't really work out for you, right?
The radiation made everything worse.
Yeah.
Everything.
So you chose after that to go totally holistic. That was like
completely.
Your thing. So talk a little bit about what that means, because so many people throw that word around and they think, oh, I drink a green tea a day, or I don't eat this. So talk a little bit about what holistic is and what you do in your program.
Right. So holistic really is the whole aspect. It's your mind, your body, your soul. It's everything. I feel like a lot of people, especially now with like general medicine and all that big pharma stuff, they just want to treat one thing. They don't want to treat everything. And going through this journey too, I realized, it was a lot of up and down the past 5 years. Like,
sure.
I'd have really great results from some of my scans, and then there's a little bit of growth, and I'm like, okay, like, what did I learn from this? I need to switch this up, and I need to change this up. And there was a point too where I would be drinking 8 green juices a day, working out, but my mind wasn't right, and I wasn't getting the best results that way. And once I had everything aligned, that's when I would feel my best, and that's when, I remember it was one summer, my doctors called me after one of my scans, were like, are you going to get treatment somewhere else? I said, no, why? Your tumor shrunk more than 75% of its size. I'm like, that's amazing. You can't tell really your surgeon or your doctor that, because they don't really believe in all this, because they're not taught about it.
Yeah.
So you can't knock them for it too much, but a lot of things I did was the juicing. I flooded my body with nutrition. I changed up my diet completely. I was eating vegan, but a clean vegan, because when I first started eating vegan, I was buying processed stuff. I'm like, oh, it says vegan on it? Like, this is going to be great for me, and it was horrible. I was really removing a lot of toxicity out of my life, people that were just negative and bringing me down, and it's hard to do that.
Yeah, sure. When you're talking like diet, go into detail a little bit.
Okay,
like,
with diet,
so the listeners know, because everybody loves to hear that, like,
yes.
Oh, she's vegan. But I think a lot of listeners are like, well, what does it
because
really
even
mean
now,
to her?
Yeah, like even now, like I just recently started incorporating chicken back in my diet, so you got to figure out what works, like what your issue is and what works for you, because I think everybody is different, and this is what I focus on too with a lot of the women that I work with now. So for me, when I was at my sickest, I was like, all right, I have to cut out all meat, all animal product, everything, because especially for your liver, what that does, any animal byproduct is horrible for your liver. Especially if you have an underlying liver issue now, it causes inflammation. So when you're sick, what you want to do is you want to bring your body, your pH level down to an alkaline state. So basically, probably around like a 6.5 to a 7.5 pH level. And you do that with a lot of plant-based foods, fruits, green juices, hot water with lemon, apple cider vinegar. I do that every single morning. A lot of greens. Pretty much like that's it. Like people think it's super, super hard. It's not. And sometimes it could be hard eating that way, but you just kind of got to like get creative with it.
Yeah. So you went total. Were you a bad eater before that, or was it just something you wanted to do?
My mother made pasta with sauce, and then I grew up with pastina with butter, and I was living off chicken fingers when I was a kid, and French fries, and it was like
So
I ate what I wanted, and
Yeah.
then I thought, like I remember the very first time I was sick, I thought I was eating clean, right? Like especially now you see even to all over Instagram, like oh eat clean, and it's like you see what they're eating, and yes, the typical American diet is really bad. So when you see people just eating like grilled chicken and rice, like yes, that might be clean to you, especially if you're doing like a fitness competition or something. But if you're sick and you're trying to heal, you cannot eat that.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to be eating that. You want to be eating a lot of vegetables, steamed vegetables, fruits, a lot of salads, like a ton of greens. Like everyone's diet has to be different and like tailored to what they have going on.
Sure, and I think that people don't realize that a lot. Like everything's specific for you individually.
Everything.
What might work for like Ashley might not work for
Exactly.
the other person.
And
so
even what worked for me at one point
didn't
isn't
work.
going to work for me now.
Yeah.
That's why, like I said, like I just started incorporating like a little bit of meat, but I make sure that meat's organic. I still stay away from red meat. God, I don't think I had red meat in over 10 years.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't think I could do that.
Yeah, a lot of people can't.
Yeah.
Listen, it's all right.
One of the things you talked about, you said one of the things you need to do too was get your mind right.
Yes.
So what did you do to help get your mind right?
Personal development. Personal development. I prayed every morning and night. I guess you could say it's meditation. I don't sit there with my legs crossed and like I just never did that. It's just not my style. And I did a lot of journaling. I wrote out my feelings. I feel like that got me through a lot. And I wrote out so many things I was grateful for. So I was practicing a lot of gratitude, and I still do it now.
Yeah.
Like I have like a journal.
If you watch any of those guys like online or any of the big influencers, they always talk about gratitude.
Always, and I try to focus on that. Like I catch myself like getting annoyed with things sometimes.
Sure.
And irritable. We're humans. It happens. I'm not perfect by any means. But when I'm in like a bad or like a shitty situation, I try to be like, all right, like this is a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Like sometimes like I'm just like, oh my God, I have so much stuff to do. I gotta rush. Da, 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 da. But I'm like, this is great. I have the opportunity that I'm able to do this.
Yeah, busy's good.
Yeah, this is great.
You kind of glanced over a little bit in there when you started doing all that stuff, like eating well and the meditation, and you went back to your doctor and the tumor shrunk by 75%.
That's a lot.
The doctors kind of didn't believe you. They
No.
thought you were getting treated somewhere else.
Yes. And
what was their like thought process like when you're like, oh no, I've just been juicing and I've been meditating?
So actually, I didn't get to touch base with you about this, but when I had like the big liver issues going on, like the second half of last year and the beginning of this year, when my bilirubin was super high, all that, I did the juicing for a week. I did a detox, and I brought my levels at the time were 7 times higher of what they should have been. So they wanted me to come in. I said, I'm not coming in, whatever. I did a juice cleanse, and then when they did my results, they're like, I went in for an ultrasound, and they bring in another ultrasound tech, and then they bring in the head ultrasound tech, and they're like, there's no blockages there. She doesn't have any blockages. Like, what's going on? Like, with the way her scan looked, her ultrasound should look like this. What's happening? It just disappeared on its own. I go, well, I've been juicing really heavily for the past 7 days. Oh, there's no proof in that. There's no scientific study. I go, what do you mean there's no, like, I'm proof of it. What do you mean?
Yeah. You got a little bit ahead of me. Talk about that because you had a blocked bile duct.
Yes.
And those bilirubin levels that you mentioned. And
Yeah.
a normal level is like 1.2 to 7.
No, the normal level, is 1.2.
Is 1.2.
1.2 or below you want to be.
And yours was?
The first time I caught it, it was at like a 7.8.
Okay.
During that whole up and down journey, it had gotten to a 22.
And then you did the cleanse, the juice
I
cleanse,
did cleanse.
and they were back.
They were back normal.
They were back normal.
Yes.
And once again, the doctors were left shaking their heads.
Shaking their heads like, what did you do?
At what time did they want to do a stent surgery? Was that then?
It was actually, they wanted to do it then, but they wanted to drain it out with the bag. So I'd have to wear like a bag that was attached to my stomach. And it just didn't feel right. So I got that back down. And then afterwards, I slacked off because I'm like, all right, so
Everything's good.
everything's good. I could just go back to doing what I want to do. And at the time, I was in a pretty toxic relationship. And that goes back to us talking about like the mind, body, everything. And my levels just shot right back up again.
So once again, you're talking about that mind-body connection, and your levels went back up after you kind of had a bad boyfriend breakup. And then didn't they want to do a stent? They wanted to do the stent surgery.
Yes, and I had to do it because I was trying the hardest I could, and I'm just like, I just can't wrap my head around it. Like I can't do it. So I did the stent surgery, but when I was in the hospital the one time, because I was in and out of the hospital for pain, nausea, vomiting, I was super jaundiced. I mean, there's nothing in this room that's really super yellow, but I was screaming yellow, like bad. My eyes were completely yellow, almost green, like fluorescent neon. I was in the doctor's office, and they came in. They're like, all right, we're going to put you in for like an emergency procedure. I said, well, I want to talk to the doctor because I really don't want to wake up on the table with a bag attached to my stomach. Oh, well, you could talk to the doctor once you get in the OR. I said, no, he can come up to my room and talk to me. No, you could talk to me. I go, all right, get me my discharge papers because I'm leaving. And they thought I was crazy. They're like, you can die. Like, your levels are 22. We don't understand how you're not in liver failure. How are you walking around right now?
Yeah.
I'm like, just get me my discharge papers. You could go cross Madison Avenue right now and get hit by a car, and I'm not telling you that. So I think it's the whole thing, too, of, like, kind of not being scared. Like, I feel like a lot of the times many doctors try to, like, instill a fear in you. But in my gut, I'm like, I can't do this until I'm comfortable with my doctor.
So what happened after? So did you literally
So
sign yourself
I
out?
literally left. I left, and then I went back next week. I was actually supposed to be in the city for an event for hair with my boss. And we were on the bus going into Manhattan, and she's like, you're green. Like, you really probably should go. And I called, and they're like, come in. And then I went in, and
You went and had the surgery.
I went in, and I had a stent put in, and I had really good results from it, like a week. Like, they dropped down like half the amount that it was, so it probably went to like a 12. And a week after that, I still couldn't eat anything. At the time, I was 98 pounds. Like, I'm a short girl, but like 98 pounds is way too skinny for me.
Yeah.
So I just couldn't eat. I was vomiting. I was exhausted. It didn't help me at all. They said, come back in again. I had to do another stent. So they put a stent inside a stent, blew it up, and then that worked out. And then I was getting some good results from that. Everything was kind of trending back downwards again, but I was still in pain, vomiting. I wasn't as exhausted, but I was still pretty tired. And when I say exhausted, like, I was spending more than 50% of my day in bed. Like I told you, I couldn't even drive my kid to school in the morning. I couldn't even make her dinner. And that's hard for someone like me. That's like, go, go, go.
Yeah.
I go back to the hospital. They found a blood clot in my liver.
Oh. So what do they do for the blood clot?
So blood clot, they just put me on blood thinners.
Are you still on blood thinners today?
They wanted me to be on blood thinners for a month. In natural Ashley Devine fashion, I was on them for 2 weeks because I'm like, I don't want to stay on them for a month, And I kind of scheduled it around when they had to see me back for like a follow-up. And I told myself, I'm like, all right, if it dissolved by the time I get my ultrasound, then I'm definitely not going back on them. If it's still there, I'll go back on them. And it was gone.
So you've been pretty...
I've been through the ringer the past couple of months.
Yeah, past couple of months. So this is pretty recent.
This is recent. This is all 2019. This was from like January on. When I did the Y90 radiation in August, that I never had any of these issues until I did that Y90 radiation in August. I never had a symptom of feeling tired, in pain, weak, nothing. And then I did this, and it just didn't work for me.
Yeah. What are you doing right now? Are you still doing the eating clean, going to the gym?
Completely. I'm working out 6 days a week, at least, if not 7. Gratitude journaling all the time. toxic people out of my life. Don't have time for it. Don't have the energy for it. If
Yeah.
it doesn't serve me, I'm not doing it. I am following my gut more than I ever have before because I feel like a lot of women now, when they're going through stuff, they want the opinions from everybody else, and that's what I did back in August when I was doing the radiation. It's like I needed that reassurance from people, but it's not their life. They don't know what it's like. They don't have the same. They might not even have the same beliefs as me. And no, I'm still eating really, really clean, and I'm actually doing some intermittent fasting stuff now, too, just for like health purposes.
With the intermittent fasting, you have like a window you eat in.
Yes.
Are you doing like an 11 to 7, 12 to 8?
I eat 1 to 7, and then I fast for the rest. So I think that's a 16 8-hour split.
Yeah. So after all this stuff happens, you decided that you wanted to kind of start helping people because of how you reacted and the good results that you've had from what you've done. And one of the ways you wanted to do that was through social media, and you started your own holistic kind of coaching.
Yeah.
So talk about that a little bit.
So when I
diagnosed, I got certified in holistic nutrition just for my own knowledge because I'm like, I want to learn more. Like, there's only so many books that I could like pick up from the library or order off of Amazon. Like, I want to learn more and what I could do for myself. So I had that certification under my belt, and while going through this journey, I was constantly, sharing, my battles, my ups and downs on social media. And I was having all these people come to me and message me, and even like some of my clients that would sit in my chair at the salon. Like, oh, you're such a big inspiration. I'm going through X, Y, and Z, and someone would come to me. I actually got diagnosed with cancer. Like, I don't want to do chemo. Like, what can I do? And I was having all these people constantly messaging me. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I need to do something where I could reach more people in like a more professional aspect too. And that's when I decided to start my own coaching business because I needed to be that woman that I needed at that time.
Sure.
And I feel like it was a thought a few times for me. And I feel like I hear a lot too, like if you think that you should do something, you got to do it. And that's what I did. And I didn't do it at the best time either because I had my first paying client. And I say paying because even when you start a business, you're doing things for free for a lot of people.
Yes.
Her day one of she was doing a 6-week program with me. Her day one was the day I was getting a stent put in.
So you're literally coaching from like the
I
hospital.
was literally coaching from my hospital bed. But then I'm thinking too, like, this is great. Like, I could be working. That's my mentality too, like a worker mentality.
Mm-hmm.
I could be working anywhere.
Sure.
I'm at, even if it's a hospital bed. Like, as nuts as that might sound.
If the listeners out there want to get in touch with you for holistic coaching, what's the best way to do that? Through your social media?
So they could message me through my social media, or they could visit my website. It's the AshleyDevineProject.com. The best way too is social media. So on Instagram, it's Ashley__Devine, Devine. And then if you just type in my first and last name on Facebook, I'll pop up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just so we're clear before we kind of wrap things up here, you're still currently living with cancer. You have a tumor in you right now on your liver.
Yeah.
And you're still doing all this other stuff.
And I'm still doing all this other stuff. And some people are like, you need to slow down. And I wouldn't do this. And I was out of the salon for about a month and a half after all the stuff going on recently. And I'm working from my laptop. But it was almost like a form of escapism for me. Like, I was able to take the focus off of my own
kept
problems.
your mind on something else.
And it made me just feel really good just to know that I'm helping other people or pouring into other people, whether they're my client or not, or potentially might be my client or whatever the case is. Like, I just feel like when we stop focusing on our own issues, like, they almost like will go away. It's almost like that saying, like, what you focus on, you're going to receive or you'll see more of.
Sure.
Same thing when you don't focus on it.
Yeah. Anything you want before we go?
I mean, that's pretty much it. I think a big thing too recently is like what I've been feeling is just like really just learning how to listen to your gut when it comes to dealing with your own health issues. I feel like being afraid sometimes is normal, but I feel like you have to be more comfortable more than you are afraid of like when you're going through something. And don't just go get one opinion. Get 5 or 6 if you can. And I don't think that there is just like one way of doing things. Like, I think practicing different ways might be the best route for people, because like even for me, like I do practice a lot of holistic stuff, but look what recently happened. I still had to get a stent put in.
Yeah.
So like there's nothing wrong with combining.
Finding some kind of happy medium.
Yeah, exactly. A happy medium. There's nothing wrong with combining the two. Just because you're into holistic stuff doesn't mean that needs to be the only way, or you need to be some hippie meditating on the top of a mountain. Like, let's be real. Like, sometimes you need your doctors and sometimes you need a nutritionist. There's both.
Ashley, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank
I
you
really
for
appreciate it.
having me. Appreciate it.